You ready, Mr. Kelly?
Yeah, I guess.
Okay. I'd like to call this meeting of the Williamsburg-James City County School Board to order. Mrs. Young is joining us by phone, and I'd like a motion to please approve that.
I move that Mrs. Sandra Young be allowed to participate in tonight's work session due to family obligations in Boise, Idaho, where Mrs. Young is calling from.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Ms. Thurza, will you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Taylor?
Aye.
Mrs. Young?
Aye.
Dr. Beers?
Aye.
Ms. Hummel?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Ms. Ownby?
Aye.
Ms. Cook?
Aye. Brings us to certification of closed session. May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, I certify that to the best of each member's knowledge, the Williamsburg-James City County School Board, while in closed session, discussed only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements as stated in Virginia law, and that only such public matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered.
Second, please.
Second.
Any discussion? Ms. Thurza, will you call the roll, please?
Dr. Beers?
Here.
Ms. Hummel?
Here.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Ms. Ownby?
Sorry.
Aye.
Mrs. Taylor?
Aye.
Mrs. Young? Ms. Cook?
Aye. Motion passes.
Sorry.
All right, that brings us to the roll. Ms. Thurza, will you call the roll, please?
Dr. Beers?
Here.
Ms. Hummel?
Aye. No, just kidding. Here.
Mr. Kelly?
Here.
Ms. Ownby?
Here.
Mrs. Taylor?
Here.
Mrs. Young?
Here.
Ms. Cook?
Here. Thank you, Ms. Thurza. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda, please?
I move approval of the agenda as presented.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Ms. Thurza, will you call the roll, please?
Ms. Hummel?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Ms. Ownby?
Aye.
Mrs. Taylor?
Aye.
Mrs. Young?
Aye.
Dr. Beers?
Aye.
Ms. Cook?
Aye. The agenda is approved. That brings us to announcements, superintendent's report. Dr. Herron, please.
Madam Chair. Good evening. Congratulations to Jamestown High School for winning the 2016-17 Wells Fargo Cup for Conference 4A. The Wells Fargo Cup goes to the school in each group classification that has achieved the best overall record in VHSL state-level competition in 27 sports. Jamestown also earned the Claudia Wooden Sportsmanship Award and the Daily Press School of the Year Award. Congratulations to all of the students and staff who helped make 2016-17 an award-winning year for Jamestown's athletic program. Families that haven't registered their students for school should do so as soon as possible. School offices are currently open Monday through Thursday and will be open Monday through Friday, beginning the week of August 14th. Please do not hesitate to contact your child's school for more information. Registration details and forms are available on the division's website at wjccschools.org. Also online are school supply lists. Visit your school child's website for specific information. Additionally, lists are available at many retailers around town. Finally this evening, it's my pleasure to introduce a new director to the Operations Department. Miss Tina Simpson comes to us from Loudoun County Public Schools, where she served as Transportation Coordinator for 2 years. Prior to that, she was a Transportation Supervisor in Fairfax County Public Schools for 14 years. Ms. Simpson will serve as the new Director of Transportation. Welcome to the leadership team. Today, all of the leadership team from WJCC attended the Region 2 Equity Through Excellence Conference in Chesapeake, and we had a wonderful day of learning about equity. Those are all of the announcements I have this evening, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Herron. Ms. Ownby?
Just wanted to note that the Special Education Advisory Committee has met recently. They're working on updating their bylaws, and they plan to present those to the board later this fall, I think around October-ish.
Any other announcements? I would just like to announce that regarding the redistricting conversation at the September work session, the first meeting in September, this board will discuss the criteria with consultation from staff and the consultant that we hired. And then in the second meeting in September, there will be a public hearing scheduled to hear from the public on that topic. And then the work session in October will be followed by, will include discussion of this board, kind of narrowing, reflecting on what we heard in the first work session and from the public. And then the second meeting in October is when we'll take action to come to consensus as a board to give direction to the staff and to the consultant. So anyway, I just wanted everyone to be aware of that. Okay, that brings us to citizens' comments. Ms. Hummel?
This is the time when citizens who have submitted speaker cards are invited to address the board. Speakers are asked to come to the podium when their names are called, state their name for the record, and direct their comments to the chair of the board. Each speaker is allocated 3 minutes, and time cannot be yielded to another speaker. Personnel matters are not discussed in open school board meetings, and we ask that you refrain from making reference to specific individuals. The board is interested in hearing all comments fully and requests that citizens refrain from verbal outbursts, applause, or any other type of demonstration. Although the board does not respond to comments at this time, please know that we are listening and we appreciate your time. Thank you for adhering to these guidelines. Madam Chair, my directions are concluded.
Thank you, Ms. Hummel. Mrs. Taylor?
Adrian Carter.
Good evening. I'm Adrian Carter, and I hope that my comments this evening will be timely, coming off the heel of your Equity Through Excellence conference that you just talked about briefly. There's an old adage that says that the squeaky wheel gets the oil. I'm back again talking about the relevance and the importance of this school district seriously addressing the lack of diversity and inclusion in the classrooms in terms of their hiring practices. This is a very serious matter. I've mentioned it several times, and I'm sure other people have had conversations about it. And I'm here again this evening to task not only the school board, but also the principals and all of the administrators to really take a serious look at how these hiring practices are done. There's been all kinds of conversation around the lack thereof qualified minority teachers and teachers other than majorities, and how they're not coming to this particular school district. However, our neighboring school districts, York County, Newport News, and Hampton, somehow are able to solicit those qualified teachers. In order for any teacher to teach in a public school in this state, they must be certified. Again, I would challenge each and every one of you who are in a leadership position to seriously consider making a change that will affect minority and majority students and their experience in the Williamsburg-James City County public school system. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Carter. Excuse me just a second. That brings us to, excuse me, proposed agenda item 6.01, Standard Operating Procedures Annual Review. Mrs. Taylor, Ms. Hummel, would you like to talk about that, please?
Every year, we go through and take a look at these. Just it's part of our standard operating procedure. So we made a couple of small edits. If you look through there, just based on the feedback we received from the board. Nothing major was changed.
We are lucky to benefit from your editing skills. Any comments? Any comments, Mrs. Young?
No, I've read it, and I'm just amazed at all the capital C.
Anything else? All right, this will move into our agenda next meeting then. All right. Item 6.02, authorization to permit city-county use of school buses. Dr. Herron, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Annually, we bring this to the board for their consideration, and Mr. Snipes is here to explain the agenda item. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chair, school board members, Dr. Herron. Tonight's agenda item, as Dr. Herron says, is our annual request to authorize city and county use of school buses. Periodically, James City County and Williamsburg asked to use our school buses primarily during the summer for transportation of students for the summer program, and this is just their annual request to do so.
Any questions?
How much do they actually use the buses?
You say how much? Do you mean how many days, or are we talking?
I don't know. I don't know.
Like I said, they primarily use them during the summer for their summer program to transport students back and forth. But that's really the primary use.
So summer rec league?
Summer,
The rec
yes.
programs?
Rec.
Okay.
Rec Connect.
All right.
Other questions?
No.
Thank you. Thank you. This will move into our agenda for action next meeting. All right, that brings us to item 6.03, the fiscal year 2019 budget calendar. It's hard to believe. Dr. Herron?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Annually, we bring to you a proposed budget calendar for your consideration, and Ms. Berta will present that calendar to us this evening.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Herron. Can't believe it's that time of the year again. I feel like we just finished. So in your board packet, there is a copy of the calendar for your review, but I will highlight some of those dates so we can have a discussion and make sure that we're all in agreement. So next meeting, August 15th, we will propose this calendar for approval so that we have a guide to map out our budget process. September 19th will be the initial presentation of the CIP Development Committee's recommendations for our capital improvement plan for the next 10 years. October 3rd would be a public hearing on those recommendations. October 17th would be the school's prioritization of those capital improvement recommendations. Then we would conduct another public hearing on November 14th. And then December 12th would be our adoption of the capital improvement plan to continue with that separation of the capital budget from the operating budget. We will continue to have a committee with some community members' input like we did last year with that change. Then we move into the operating budget cycle. We have proposed January 6th as a retreat date so that we can begin to formulate the superintendent's proposed budget and move forward with that based on General Assembly information we receive. January 16th would be a pre-budget public hearing to get input from the community. February 20th would be the initial presentation of the superintendent's proposed budget. We are recommending the second meeting in February this year because it is a long General Assembly session, a new biennium, which is going to mean a new local composite index and a lot of changes happening. So we want to make sure that we have the most length of time to incorporate that into the budget as we can to develop a pretty accurate superintendent's proposed budget. Then in March, we would conduct a joint meeting with the James City County supervisors and the city council members. March 6th would be a public hearing on the proposed budget. March 20th would be the school board's approval of the operating budget. And then May 15th is the projected date when we will have all of those pieces back from James City County and the city to be able to finalize our budget for fiscal year 19. I'll be happy to answer any questions, comments. Don't like it, like it.
Thank you, Ms. Berta.
Thank you.
Just the public hearing on the 14th, how does that fit in with the district?
That's in second meeting in September.
September, okay,
Yeah.
so we're gonna be, by November, I'm just trying to, like, even out the flow of what could be.
I don't know when, so that's for criteria, right? So then maps will be emerging sometime. But we,
Once the criteria is established, there'll be a period of time to develop the maps because they can't start that process until they're very clear on the board's criteria. So that will probably be until November, December time, I'm sure.
probably redistricting will be completed by the time this public hearing happens?
Timeline currently is to have the redistricting completed at the end of February. That's the target date.
There very likely could be concurrent public hearings, just by the nature of what we're moving forward this year.
Other questions?
So The February 20th presentation of the superintendent's budget, new biennium, new governor. I'm just curious if we should maybe move that meeting to the 27th because, just to have the whole school board meeting moved to that as late as possible because it's unlikely that the General Assembly will have finished their work by the 20th of February.
To be honest, I'm not sure they'd be finished by the 27th either.
Yeah.
I think at some point, we've got to decide where that breaking line is and move forward with what we think is going to happen, with the understanding that in March, we'd be able to tweak some of that with your final approval before it went to our funding partners.
So you prefer the 20th?
I do.
Okay.
Okay, all right.
I think the advantage, it gives more time for the board to really work through the budget that I propose to them and consider it fully. It gives a little bit more time for that.
Let's make sure we remind her of that on February 19th.
Yeah. Someone write that down. So, new governor, new LCI, re-benchmarking too?
Yes. All of
Excellent.
those things, yes. And a
Okay.
long session, which we only know when they're going to finish. They finish when they finish.
Lot of tea leaves this year.
There are.
So building on that, there's two questions I have for you all. First, if we hear the budget on the 20th of February, we discuss it on March 6th, and then we vote on it on March 20th, that gives us one meeting to discuss it, which I'm comfortable with that, but I wanted to bring that up. Do you all want to tentatively plan on another March meeting to provide 2 meetings for us to discuss before we come to a vote?
That this past year, and then we chose not.
That's correct, and we did the same thing in May, the same question in May. So we did schedule those, and then we canceled them. Is that right? We did? Yes. So do we want to do that again? Okay, so if I hear you correctly, can we direct staff to add a meeting in March and a meeting in May to this calendar? And then that way we can adopt that. And I guess they can be noted as tentative?
Potential tentative.
Yeah. That way we've got it on our calendars and, okay, and I ask this every year. I know it's not in our wheelhouse, but just keep us abreast of the county and the city's calendars as well and their work sessions.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And you knew that was coming,
Yeah,
didn't you?
and I'll provide that information in the next board meeting as well as that secondary calendar.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Good, we'll look forward to seeing this at the next
Thank
meeting
you.
then. Thank you. Right. That brings us to policies. Item 7.01, retire policy EEAA walkers and riders. Dr. Herron, or do you? Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think Mr. Snipes is here to present several policies this evening, and then 1 or 2 other staff members will come along later. Thank you, Mr. Snipes.
Good evening again. Tonight, we are attempting to align our policies with some VSBA policies. Currently, there is no policy in the VSBA for EEAA, which is walkers and riders. So what we're requesting tonight is to retire policy EEAA, walkers and riders, and include some of that policy in EEAB. Specifically, we want to propose to use the travel distance policy, part of the policy for travel distances, which for K through 5 and 6 through 12, which is a half a mile K through 5 and a mile for 6 through 12 for establishing bus stop distances. That will be included in the policy following to adopt VSBA policy EEAB with some modifications. But we're requesting tonight to retire policy EEAA, walkers and riders.
Questions for Mr. All right, on to the next one.
This is to retire policy EE, which is transportation management. When the policy committee and I met to review this policy, a lot of this information is part of a job description, not really policy. And some of the items in this policy will be covered when we adopt the VSBA policy EEA and EEAB. So it's kind of a redundant to have this similar information in policies that we're about to adopt.
This is not in VSBA.
The policy EE, Policy EE does not have a VSBA policy, no.
Any other questions? Item 7.0.
This is to revise policy EEAC, which is school bus maintenance. We want to align it with our current VSBA policy. As you review what we are attempting to do, there are some strike-throughs on EEAC, specifically because the information following is more of a explanation of the first sentence. If the first sentence for EEAC says all buses and other vehicles owned and operated by the division are inspected for safety in accordance with the regulations prescribed by the Department of Education, there's really no need to delve into the specifics of doing additional. If we're following the VSBA and the state law, then there's no need to explain what those issues are, what those things are. And that it also occurs in the second paragraph. All accidents, regardless of the damage involved, must be approved and reported to the transportation supervisor. So there's no need to explain what an accident is or what an incident is if we say all. All includes everything.
On line 20, the word crashes. Can we do accidents or incidents involving school buses resulting in property damage?
Sure.
Incidents, I think.
Other wordsmithing.
Wordsmithing.
That's a good one. No, that's a good
No, that was good. No, good.
one. We should have caught that.
Anything else? Item 7.04.
Item 7.04, again, we're aligning our policies with VSBA. 7.04, which is Student Transportation Services, VSBA policy EEA. Again, we are, just like I said before, attempting to align these policies. The one item that has been discussed earlier, because it came across in a superintendent's memo, was earlier today, was how disputes over the cost incorporated with transporting foster care children would be resolved. That's not part of our policy anyway, so we don't have to redact or remove that or table this until the next board meeting. We do not have to table it.
That new guidance from the state is a procedure?
That new guidance from the state was reflected for us to repeal any recently acted federal regulations regarding that. So we didn't have it as part of our policy anyway, so we didn't have to remove it from it.
Thank you for looking. So this is a new policy? EEA.
This will be a new policy adopting VSBA policy EEA.
Any questions on EEA? How about you, Mrs. Young? Are you good?
I'm good. Yeah, and I heard what Marcella said, so yeah, fine.
Thanks. All right, 7.05, please.
7.05, again, is to align the WJCC policy with the VSBA policy. And a portion of this policy, as I said from previously, EEAA would be included in EEAB, which is the travel distances. So that's where the information from earlier we pulled out of EEAA is now in EEAB, alphabet soup. So again, we're just aligning these two policies, and it was added. The removal of, in VSBA policy, if you notice, the first line, the operation of school buses is scheduled to maximize safety and efficiency. We removed that because, again, it's redundant with the second paragraph of school bus routes, school sites, and safety of students at designated school bus stops are reviewed at least once a year as changes occur. So we're already routing them efficiently and safely.
Questions on this one? Would you say, generally speaking, we exceed this standard?
Of the school bus scheduling and routing?
Well, yeah, the distance from.
Typically, yeah, our bus stops are about 0.25 to 0.35 miles from for K through 5 and 6 through 12 respectively. Miss Simpson may have reviewed something similar since she's been here, but when Mr. Tyler was here, we reviewed it, and it was 0.25 and 0.35 respectively on average.
All right, item 7.06, revised policy GCBDA sick leave bank.
Thank you. Mr. Baker is here to address this one. Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Herron. Policy GCBDA sick leave bank, there is not a VSBA policy on this. In 2014, when VRS added the new hybrid plan, they also added a disability benefit. And so what we're proposing is to now only allow our VRS Plan 1 members and Plan 2 members to participate in the sick leave bank, because the people in the hybrid plan, like myself, already receive a benefit. And so they're actually getting 2 benefits. So we're going to propose to say that they won't receive that benefit.
Questions? This is my standard question about if there's no VSBA policy, can you help me understand why we need one?
We're updating our current policy. I mean, there could be a proposal to eliminate sick leave bank altogether. We didn't propose that, but that could be an opportunity.
So if there's no VSBA policy on sick leave banks, would that then, could one assume that sick leave banks are not typical?
Some divisions have them, some don't. It might not be a great business practice, but we have one. Some people could argue we maybe shouldn't have one, but it's a benefit that we give our employees. We don't have a lot of participation. I think we only have about 2 in the past year.
Last year?
I mean, in terms of people taking check out of the bank, I think
Right.
about 700 employees
Participate.
but only 2 have actually taken advantage of it.
So can you give us a Reader's Digest of how the sick leave banks works?
After the sick leave bank works after 30 days and after you've used up all your sick leave and personal leave, after 30 days, then you can actually get a sick leave bank up to 45 days and take money or take your payout from the bank.
And so employees donate into the sick leave bank?
Correct. Like, so an employee donates 1 day in when they start or when they're hired, and they only do it once. And we have, I think, about 5,000 hours of time in the bank, and I think we've only had 2 employees take a withdrawal out of the bank in the last year. So we have a pretty large bank.
Pretty good.
And that brings us to 7.07. Thank you, Mr. Baker. Revised policy IGAJ, driver education.
Mr. Paula will be presenting this tonight. Thank you, Mr. Paula.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Herron. We're bringing this policy to you tonight to show some updated language to be more concise, and thank you very much for the committee's editing skills. Also, we have some information about a draft policy coming from VSBA that has language included about traffic stops and law enforcement procedures. And in anticipation of those changes, we decided to include that in our current policy. We've just included a little bit more information about the student tuition fee, which we've discussed here before, that we will get that information end of August from the VDOE. And other than that, language is fairly consistent with the VSBA. We've run it by our attorneys, and they're good with this.
Any questions for Mr. Paula?
No.
Thank you very much. I want to thank all the staff and Ms. Hummel and Mrs. Taylor for your work on this. It's a lot of work, so we appreciate it, particularly the excellent editing. So anyway, okay, so all of these will then migrate onto the consent agenda for the next meeting. And that brings us to item 8.01, personnel actions. May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, I move approval of the personnel agenda as presented.
Second, please. Is there any discussion? Souza, will you call the roll, please?
Ms. Ownby,
Aye.
Mrs. Taylor,
Aye.
Mrs. Young,
Aye.
Dr. Beers.
Aye.
Ms. Hummel,
Aye.
Mr. Kelly.
Aye.
Ms. Cook.
Aye. Motion passes. Item 9.01, board members' comments. Mrs. Young, do you want to start?
I just want to thank the Who did all the policy committee, that's kind of work. Thank you, Ernest, and Ms. Mike, for all of their art. And congratulations to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Beers?
I just would like to say I hope everybody is enjoying the summer, and students and teachers are getting rested up and ready to start up again in spring.
Zombi?
Just wanted to share, I had an opportunity to attend the summer school project-based learning presentation at Berkeley Middle School last week, and was very impressed with the rising 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students and their projects on using graphing calculators and careers. So that was very enjoyable chatting with those students. I'm also excited to attend this Thursday, the summer graduation program, where I think we'll have 2 graduates. That'll be at Lafayette High School at 4 or 5 o'clock. And then wanted to say welcome back to all of our student athletes who are already nose to the grindstone.
7 a.m.
7 a.m. and our band students. So welcome back. School's in session.
Mr. Kelly?
Madam Chair, I'd like to join Dr. Herron in welcoming our new Director of Transportation, Mrs. Simpson. Kind of like NASCAR, they start off with the Super Bowl first, right out of the gate with the first day of school, so good luck with that. Last week, I was able to attend the Classrooms Not Courtrooms Conference in Richmond on March 24th and 25th with several members of the administration. There were outstanding presentations given there and speakers and lots of good information. I was hoping to get access to the presentations, but it doesn't appear to be that it's online, which is really very disappointing. A couple of nuggets I took away from the conference. Culture and climate in the schools starts at the governing level, starts with us, and pervades down to the teachers and the parents. So when a school is, for instance, when a school is labeled as a Title I school, there are conversations, what message is being sent to the school and the students and the parents about that school. And so what the adults say about a school really does make a difference. And I thought that was really very poignant. And they also talked about absenteeism and how much it really matters. And so there's some prevailing thought that at an elementary school that absenteeism is not really all that important. But if a student misses 10% of a school year, after 5 years they've missed over 100 days, which is half of an academic year. And so if they miss that many days, are they set up for success in the middle school level? Getting into some of those advanced courses, and then that flips over into the high school level. And so, without that foundational instruction in the elementary level, it's really has a very big effect on your entire academic performance through the school year. So I thought that was really very interesting. And I was stunned by the number that 2.8 million K through 12 students are suspended every year. And as a school board member, we value education and we value students being in class, and to have that kind of a number nationwide was really pretty stunning to me. So I would encourage any board member that if you're invited to go in coming years to definitely attend. It's a very very good education, very good conference, very good speakers, and very good interaction amongst the attendees. So I was very privileged to attend that, and I thank you.
I also want to echo Dr. Beers. It's nice to have all the students enjoying their last couple weeks of summer vacation, and hope they're resting up along with the teachers. Also, the Williamsburg James City County Education Foundation is meeting on Wednesday, tomorrow. We have got a meeting where we're going to be trying to take that grant application and bring it online to make it an easier process. So we're all working together on that. And then I want to just say it's really an honor to work on the policy committee. People might make fun of it, but it is very a rewarding opportunity to see the inner workings of the school system, and it's been very educational for me. So thank you for letting me do that.
I'd just like to say that I would never make fun of them for working on the policy committee. I think they do a great job, and I appreciate the work that they do.
I agree.
Already said everything.
Yeah. Mr. Kelly, thank you for attending Classrooms Not Courtrooms. When those presentations are available, would you alert us, please? Because,
Absolutely.
yeah, they're, I think, really informative. And then, in addition to athletes being back, some teachers are already in their classrooms and getting them ready. So it's already starting. So anyway, anything else? Moving to upcoming events, later this week, or next week, there's a VSBA webinar, How to Foster a Positive Relationship Between the School Board and Board of Supervisors, that our very own Ruth Larson is hosting. But I think it's not really an event, because I think I'm doing that alone, unless anyone would like to join me, in which case, that would be great. And then the Policy Committee is meeting on the 16th of August at 4 p.m. in room 309 here in the Annex. And then upcoming meetings, we have a closed session on the 15th of August at 6 p.m. at City Council Workroom in the Stryker Center, and then followed by a regular meeting on the 15th at 6:30 in City Council Chambers. And then a closed session on September 5th at 6 p.m. here at the School Board Central Office, and followed by a work session at 6:30 on the 5th right here in room 300. So. Is that anything else? Oh, I'm sorry, set the agenda. Sorry, I forgot that. So we've set the agenda for the next meeting. We have a handful of action items we've discussed, then the consent agenda, and then also the communications audit will be presented at the next meeting. Is there anything else, Dr. Herron, that I've forgotten?
That's it.
Okay, so anyway, that's our agenda for the next meeting, and with that, the meeting will adjourn.